Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight here in Dearborn Library. Well, I'm very pleased to be talking with Christine Brennan about her new book on Caitlin Clark. It's called On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. But just first book, a couple quick announcements. We'll be talking with Ms. Brennan for about 45 minutes maybe, and then take Q&A. Lots of Q&A, so be sure to uh, uh, put your questions in the Q&A bar. And want to give you a heads up, got some great programs coming up soon with next week on the making of the movie Sunset Boulevard. I'll be talking with David Rubin, the CIA Book Club with Charlie English in October, and Seth Wickersham about his new book, American Kings, Biography of American Quarterback in November, and Rick Atkinson on his new book about American Revolution in December. Take a look at the library website and we'll be sure to register for those programs. So Miss Brennan every time I see Miss Brennan on TV, I know she knows what she's talking about. Has the experience. She uh, has worked as a sports writer for many years for a number of channels like ABC, CNN. She's written books like The Inside Edge. She's a trailblazer, one of the first women sports writer of the Miami Herald, the first woman to cover the Washington's NFL team for the Washington Post. And she's covered over 21 Olympic teams or Olympic events. So it's really great. I'm touched to be talking with Christine Brennan. Please welcome.
Well, Dan, thank you. It's great to be with you. And, growing up in the suburbs of Toledo, I was in Detroit and Dearborn quite a bit. And of course, I know we're virtual and I know there's folks from around the country and who knows where, maybe the world, who've joined us. But Dearborn, of course, the Henry Ford Museum and Greenfield Village and all of that. As a Girl Scout, we always went up there as a family. We went up there and enjoyed all of the, obviously the history and the experiences that were there to offer in Dearborn. So it's near and dear to my heart. It's great to be with you, and it's great to talk about my new book, On Her Game, and the whole Caitlin Clark story, which is just so fascinating and interesting. And Caitlin Clark is not just one of the most famous athletes in the country; she's one of the most famous people in the country. And I was honored to just jump in with Scribner and just go for this and write this book very quickly. And to have the results, the success, I cannot thank everyone enough. Those who are on the call, I can't see you, and I know you can see me and hear me, and Dan as well. But just a huge thank you for the support for this book, because it means the world to me. And to debut at #2 on the New York Times bestseller list is a true cherry on top of this the incredible good fortune I've had it with my career. This doing something I've loved every day of my life, and just living this incredible dream and adventure. And this one is really just a wonderful turn of events. So thanks to all. Thanks to many of you on the call who've been so supportive, and look forward to chatting a little bit more, Dan, and then of course taking everyone's questions, because there's a lot to talk about, especially as the playoffs loom in the WNBA.
Yeah, I saw that Caitlin Clark's been out for a lot of the season with a groin injury, and then I heard something about a bruised ankle.
Exactly. Yeah, she the unbelievable nature of this. As I have in On Her Game, talking to her high school coach, I tell the whole story. For those who don't know, we won't go into too much, because I think a lot of people know by now what this book is about. But in speaking with her AAU coach, her high school coach, so many people in her life, all the way through college and then into the pros. One of the things that I was reporting, and that I believe was, I was the only one to have this, and I never would have thought it would have been a big deal, Dan. But the last game Caitlin Clark missed prior to this year was her sophomore year of high school at Dowling Catholic in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Iowa. And she missed one game because of a badly sprained ankle. That was sophomore year of high school, never missed. And her high school coach, Kristen Meyer, said it about killed her to miss that one game. And then the rest of sophomore year, of course, she played all of junior year, senior year, all 4 years at Iowa. Sometimes she had migraines, sometimes she didn't feel great, but she played. And even then, from the ages of 18 to 22, she felt such a responsibility. She said people were coming from all over, far away, hundreds of miles away. And she felt it was absolutely imperative for her to play because people were coming to watch her play. I got to say, I've covered sports, men's, women's, everything for over 40 years, and so fortunate. Super Bowls, Olympics, Tiger Woods, the length of his career. I've never heard an athlete, especially an athlete that young, have that sense of responsibility and duty, knowing that they should play, feeling they felt responsible to actually be on the court and play for all those people buying tickets and driving, bringing their kids, grandkids, whatever. Caitlin Clark is all about that every day. It's real, it's true. She is extraordinary in that way. She really is. And the way she cared so much. So again, played all through college, never missed a game. And in fact, I say in the book that one of the reasons Caitlin Clark is Caitlin Clark is because she was always around. She never missed a game. She was never gone. Paige Beckers, unfortunately, who was rated higher than Caitlin coming out of high school. They grew up less than 4-hour drive apart. Paige in Minneapolis, the suburbs, and Caitlin, of course, in the Des Moines suburbs. And Caitlin was ranked 4th nationally as a recruit coming out of high school. But Paige Beckers had injuries, very significant injuries, losing over a season and more. And so, but Caitlin Clark was always around. And so I think that certainly is part of the fascination with Caitlin Clark, and you could watch her and then you could watch her again and she would never miss a game. Then moving on to last year, of course, she was pummeled and hit and everyone was worried about her. Would she hold up after college right to the pros? But she did, had a great rookie year, extraordinary rookie year, and was never injured. And then in the off season, as she's working out and training and trying to get stronger, I have no idea what happened. I learned early on, you do not speculate as a journalist about an athlete's injury. The athlete says they're injured, that's it. And by no means am I saying she's not. Of course she is. There's no one who wants to play more and be a part of, a game more than Caitlin Clark. That is for sure. Her competitive instincts, everything that people love about her is real and true. And this is obviously just got to be so disheartening for her. But all of a sudden now in preseason, and she's missing a game, left quadriceps injury, then comes back, has an incredible exhibition preseason game at Iowa. Then, of course, the season's starting, and then she's injured the quadriceps again, then her left groin, and now her right groin. And as you said, she's missed the bulk of the season. She last played July 15th. That was when she injured her right groin. And it's stunning for me to say that someone who's been so durable and who's just played through everything. Obviously, you can't play through this. I'm certainly not implying that. But what a turn of events and what a sad, sad situation for her, for the Indiana Fever, for all her fans, and for the WNBA. Because as Caitlin Clark goes, so goes the WNBA, whether people like to hear that or not. And it's true. And so she didn't play in the All-Star game, and the TV ratings for the All-Star game dropped 36% from what they were last year when, of course, Caitlin Clark played and was, clearly starring in her rookie season. So, again, attendance is still okay, but doing well, actually, they say. But of course, there's another team added to the equation this year. So of course, the attendance is up because there's a new team added. They have an extra team now, the Valkyries from Golden State, from California, the Bay Area. So anyway, it's a really tough situation. And yes, and now the question is, can she get in any games, the last 3 games of the regular season? It looks like right now, if the season ended today, the Fever would make the playoffs with the 8th and final spot. Obviously, 3 more games for them to play, 4 more games for the LA Sparks, who are also in contention for that 8th spot. And the Fever could potentially move up to 7th. That right now Seattle has that spot. So the bottom line is there's still some games left to play, but very, very few, unless the Fever go on a great run in the playoffs, which if Caitlin Clark were healthy, anything is possible. That magic that you see on the court, the magic that is jumping off the pages of On Her Game, that would be a great storyline if she can come back. So we'll find out here in the next couple of days what the situation is for her, because the season really is only a few more days. And the regular season and then the playoffs, assuming they're in there, would begin relatively quickly. So very long answer, but I think it's important, Dan, to go into it because it is just so incredibly unusual and unexpected that Caitlin Clark's so durable, playing every game, the Cal Ripken, so to speak, of women's basketball, and then to be out so much this year. And just, first and foremost, you think of her. What a competitor, what a wonderful person, what a great role model, and how much this has just got to be killing her. And she just, of course, being around her last year and asking her 40 to 50 questions, I got to know her as any journalist could, not as a friend, obviously not hanging out with someone, but as a journalist. And I just know that this has just got to be, it's just really tough. And so for her to continue to sign those autographs and to be, have the levity that she has and her attitude as she sits on the bench in street clothes or sweats or t-shirts, whatever. It's remarkable how she's handled it, considering how tough this has to be for her.
Well, I was preparing for the talk, and I was looking at Caitlin's talk with Sue Bird, and I just was blown away by how she just talks with you. She just talks with you. It's not like an athlete sort of like keeping her distance. She talks. She's very remarkable. I guess you would say she is very real. Is that that? Do you think that's kind of the appeal for fans to her?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she is real. I mean, what you see is what you get. And I think because she's come of age and is now, obviously a part of the American culture, not just sports culture, but our American culture in general, because she's become, come of age as social media has come of age, people really know her. Those social media stories, Instagram stories, TikTok, with her Iowa teammates, obviously with the commercials she's able to be in because of NIL, name, image, and likeness. You'd be watching a game, Dan, and you would see Caitlin Clark playing in that game, Iowa game, and then they go to a commercial, and then you'd see her in that often the same uniform, and she would then be literally, she hadn't left because now you're watching a State Farm commercial where she's in that, that Iowa uniform and jersey. So, she is real. Again, you're seeing so much more of athletes because the personalities can come out because of the various ways that they can communicate with fans. Of course, 10, 15, 20 years ago and beyond, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was either a television interview or a radio interview or newspaper articles. That's how you got to know athletes. And it all changed. I remember when Tiger Woods, who I said I've covered for forever, basically, Tiger Woods had a website, and all of a sudden he could put his comments and thoughts on things, his answers to questions on the website. And you're starting to think, hey, he doesn't need journalists. He doesn't need a press conference. He can just say it. And he would be quoted accurately, and he can control the message, and it's not a soundbite. Now, obviously, they still do interviews, of course, and they still come to the press conferences, and Caitlin Clark does, and all athletes do. But that role has changed dramatically. And so, yes, Caitlin Clark is real. The emotions you see are real. When she's getting held back, I deal with the de-escalation committee in the book, where you've got her teammates are part of the quote unquote de-escalation committee as they're trying to make sure she doesn't get another technical foul that she might have to miss a game. And it turns out she didn't, but they're dragging her away or getting in between her and the ref or giving her a bear hug, all those things. That's Caitlin, that emotion, that raw emotion. She wants to win. She is so competitive. If there's a bad call, and there can often be bad calls for Caitlin Clark and for others, then you're angry or you're upset, and that's understandable. Well, you see that. You see a real human being, and that is who Caitlin Clark is. She's also very funny. She's goofy. I had access to practices, some exclusive access to some of their practices with the Fever last year. after the Olympic break. And, you know, she's jumping around and she's competitive and she's counting every shot that people are making in all the drills and the little competitions because she wants to win everything. And at one point, one of her teammates is lying on top of her on the court because, you know, they just needed to, you know, like grab her and, you know, jump on her and, you know, kind of like kids at a slumber party or something. I mean, just really fun stuff. And so she's goofy, she's fun. Her teammates love her. She loves to run around and play games and again, be a kid. And it's really delightful to watch, as I was able to do last year for the book last season, at the end of last season, because, you know, you're watching a very, very famous person, someone who's beloved, as I said, a role model for so many, you know, thousands, millions, maybe kids, boys and girls, 12, 13-year-old kids, whatever, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, 6-year-olds, you know, whatever. And she does talk about girls and boys. Caitlin Clark always wants to make sure to say that she's a role model for both girls and boys, which is also terrific. Even though obviously girls are, you know, as a role model, to look up to someone who looks like you is obviously the key. But yeah, she's just real in all ways and fun and goofy and they get a kick out of her and she gets a kick out of all of her teammates as well. So what you see is what you get, Dan, there's no doubt about that. That's the real deal. And I think you know, I hope I did a pretty good job of capturing that in the book as well.
Oh, very much so. And then I was watching videos because of your descriptions in the book, videos uh, of her making 3-point shots, like from mid-court almost. That's like the logo shots. It's like, and then she'd run off and go to the student section and get them riled up. It's quite remarkable.
Oh, I mean, that's the real deal. And you know what that is, I guess I get asked a lot, you know, people, well, why Caitlin Clark? You know, and I wish that the WNBA was getting, I've covered it the length of, you know, of the WNBA. I was covering the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, which was the launching pad for the WNBA. And then moving forward to, you know, covering the league in 99, I was working for Lifetime TV and I was covering, you know, sideline reporter and commentator on the WNBA in 99. So I've been around a long time. And you know, I wish it had been Cheryl Swoops or Maya Moore or Candace Parker, that they would be, they're big names in sports, the people, our friends and those who are listening and watching right now. Yeah, of course, we all know who they are. But your average person, like in the produce section, they're not talking about them. Probably not. They're talking about Caitlin Clark, right? And now they are. When you transcend sports and become part of the culture, as Tiger Woods did, when you reach people who would never watch golf, in Tiger's case, when you reach people who would never watch women's basketball, in Caitlin Clark's case, that's the key. And that's when things change. And why is it? Caitlin's a basketball player. Absolutely, of course. But she's really an entertainer. And that, again, takes it to a whole new level and brings in fans who otherwise never cared about women's basketball. And in fact, guys who made jokes about it. And I'd be on radio shows and they'd laugh at me as I was defending women's basketball or talking about the women's Final Four in the 90s, 93, Cheryl Swoops, I covered that one. You know, so many others over the years. Dawn Staley, I covered with UVA when I was at the Washington Post. And, you know, people would laugh and think that's, oh, you know, funny, like these guys would call up and they're just, you know, rolling around on the floor and it's jump balls and it's ridiculous. Well, it wasn't. And I defended it. But those guys, those same guys that laughed at this, Dan, you know, 20, 30, 20, well, yeah, let's say 20 years ago, those guys now are wearing number 22 jerseys, Caitlin Clark's jersey. They're wearing number 22 jerseys, not just to games, but to the grocery store and the gas station. And that is how things have changed, how dramatic this change has been because she's an entertainer. When she's chucking it from the parking lot, you know, when she's literally heaving it from the next county and the ball goes in and she's sideways and her legs are askew, as I describe in the book, you know, it's kind of one of those things you just, you know, you can't believe, like, what did I just see? You want to watch the replay, you want to go online, you want to see it on social media, look over and over again at these things. I know that feeling because I felt that way when I watched some of these incredible, the buzzer beater against Indiana in February of 2023. She, you know, just winning games and, you know, throwing the ball in the air and it goes in. The passes, these incredible passes, the way she plays with speed. As she said, she loves to sprint. She sprints around her house. She sprints everywhere. It's obviously joking a little bit there, presumably. But, you know, she just loves to run. Her eyes are up. She's looking to pass the ball. The passes are beautiful. They're breathtaking. It's jaw-dropping in some ways, and that's the entertainment value. It's the high wire act. That's what brings people there who never cared about basketball, women's or men's, never cared to watch a game. And now these are the people that have rearranged their evenings when Caitlin's playing, which of course, again, this year has been such a tough situation for her and then for her fans. And so that's it. That's it. And, I know a lot of people talk about Paige Beckers, who's a great basketball player. Obviously rookie, and is having a great year, not anywhere near as good as Caitlin's year last year, Caitlin Clark's year last year, in terms of the numbers, especially some key numbers like assists. But nonetheless, Paige Beckers is a really fine player, and one of the greats coming out of college at UConn, where she won the national title after Iowa beat them. Caitlin and Iowa beat Paige in the semifinals of the previous year of 2024. But Paige Beckers, as good as she is, they play in a 7,000 seat arena in Dallas, small arena, University of Texas at Arlington. And Paige Beckers has not been able to sell out a 7,000 seat arena. So when people say, well, okay, yeah, Caitlin, but there's others who can do this. I'm not bashing Paige Beckers. What I'm doing here is dealing with facts and reality. Caitlin Clark, of course, last year, over 17,000. This year, a little bit less, just because, again, she's been missing. But so many tickets were bought thinking Caitlin Clark would be playing, that's why those numbers for the Fever are pretty high. And the Fever road games are still by far the most attended road games, even without Caitlin Clark, again, often because the tickets were purchased well in advance by people, because I've interviewed those people, or some are family members, they still go, but of course they bought the tickets primarily, if not exclusively, because Caitlin Clark, they wanted to see her play. And so again, Paige Beckers cannot sell out a 7,000 seat arena. Caitlin Clark, they're having to move to bigger arenas because of only Caitlin Clark. And so these are the facts, and that's the difference between Caitlin Clark, even Angel Reese. Angel Reese cannot sell out, rarely sells out her relatively small arena in Chicago, unless Caitlin Clark or Indiana come to town, then they move to the big arena. And so it's Caitlin Clark. And that's, again, the magic. That is the entertainment value. It transcends sports. It transcends basketball. And I know some people get mad at me for saying this, but these are the facts. And I think the most amazing statistic, Dan, that one of the most amazing stats that I put in on her game, and I double, triple, quadruple checked this because I wanted to make sure. It was so extraordinary to me, having covered so many sport and women's sports over the years where this wasn't happening, that the Indiana Fever's average home attendance last year, Caitlin Clark's rookie year, the average home attendance for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever was higher than the average home attendance of 5 NBA teams. That is a sentence that I never thought I would utter, and it's absolutely extraordinary for the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark to be outdrawing average home attendance 5 NBA teams. I wish all WNBA teams were doing that. They're not. Maybe the Valkyries will do that a little bit this year. I don't know, because they've got a bigger arena. We'll see how that plays out. But the point is, that's the extraordinary appeal of Caitlin Clark.
Well, yeah, I can attest to how women's sports have been looked at during the years. My mom majored in phys ed at University of Connecticut, and she went through the years participating in women's sports. She refereed women's volleyball games, and she's very active in local parks and recreation. But yeah, I saw how things were received, and sort of low interest, I guess. So yeah, just it's been remarkable to see how much of a jump in interest that she's brought to women's sports, and I guess. My next thought is she brought just being her brought a lot. Well, no, I take that back. Can you explain who owns WNBA teams? Because the NBA, because it's kind of funny because when Caitlin Clark started in the league, all of a sudden you get charter planes, you get all these differences that the professional teams got. Uh, and it kind of, it's, and I saw that, yeah, can you comment about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I broke the story for USA Today when charter flights, I was able to break the news that the WNBA was going to have charter flights. And what that means is prior to that, the players were traveling just like all of us, going through TSA pre-check or regular, hopefully pre-check for them, but no special treatment, and then walking through concourses and getting on planes and the one game that the Indiana Fever did have to travel commercially, they made sure Caitlin Clark was by the window and they put a couple of her teammates by her, but people were taking videos, and there were videos in baggage claim, and it was horrible. It was just absolutely horrible that the WNBA and the NBA, it's Big Brother, and you asked, the NBA owns about 60% of the WNBA. Individual owners, some of the teams like the Indiana Fever and Pacers are together, or just in general, some of the league's ownership. So about 60% of the league is owned by the NBA. Big Brother, obviously, the WNBA has been around, obviously, far fewer years than the NBA. Anyway, so it's how on earth did they not realize Caitlin Clark's one of the most famous athletes in the country, most famous people in the country, one of them, coming out of college. 18.9 million people watched the women's final with Caitlin Clark in Iowa against South Carolina. 18.9 million. One day later, the men's final had 4 million fewer viewers. We'll never say that again. I hope I'm wrong, but never be able to say again that there were literally 4 million more people watching the women's final in the NCAA than the men's. Extraordinary. And the women were in the afternoon on network TV on ABC, but the men were at night in prime time. Again, extraordinary on TBS, but still absolutely extraordinary that happened. So you've got this incredibly popular person, and then you're going to jam her into the back of a plane commercially and make her go through concourses. They did that with Brittany Griner after she got back from being imprisoned by Vladimir Putin, and put in a cage during the trial. Horrible conditions for 6'9" Brittany Griner. And then she got accosted in the concourse by a right-wing podcaster, agitator, whatever. And then immediately Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner in the WNBA, said she could fly, privately. She could do charter flights, Brittany Griner. But how did you not anticipate that before? Once she's come back, so popular, so well known, in the news, obviously a 6'9" Black woman walking through an airport who is so famous for being held by Vladimir Putin. And yet they didn't even think, there's no anticipation here at all, Dan, or very little. Astounding to me. So you had that. Now you've got Caitlin Clark, and now she's going through, baggage claim, and you've got people from outside. This is in Dallas. People can carry guns anywhere in Dallas. There could be a Girl Scout troop come running and land on someone's ankle if they see Caitlin Clark. I mean, what on earth were they doing? This is the NBA and the WNBA. So I was going to ask a question, called up the source at the NBA and said, I'm going to do a column, but I just want to get your, explanation for this. And then they asked, could I hold off on writing? It was going into the weekend. Sure, no problem. No huge rush. I could watch and see Angel Reese going through airports and others and see how just ridiculous this looked. And God forbid there'd be any problems or any security risks. Thankfully, there weren't, or any incidents. Definitely were not. And then I got the call the next Monday, so from Friday to Monday, that I was going to be able to break the news that there'd be charter flights. I mean, who makes decisions like this? What on earth was going on? And of course, the Olympic decision in the Olympic snub chapter, I deal with all of that and how awful that just looks worse every single day. USA Basketball, just a dreadful decision. But you asked, so who's in charge here, and some teams are run both NBA and WNBA, and the perfect example is the Indiana Fever. So Caitlin Clark, of course, is drafted for #1 pick. Fever have got the #1 pick. She goes to Indiana. It's great. You can see, look at a map, 6-hour drive from Iowa City to Indianapolis. All those fans want to come see her. She's so well known in Big Ten country. Indiana, of course, known for basketball, known for supporting men's and women's, girls and boys basketball. Big Ten country, Indiana, Purdue, they all know Caitlin Clark. You've got, this is fantastic. And because it's the Pacers and the Fever, it's called Pacers Sports and Entertainment. And then they own the Fever as well. So you've got the entire staff, you've got all the digital team, you've got marketing team, ticket, everyone is in place. It's an NBA run operation that is now going to be running the WNBA team. I mean, it's still, not now, it is running the WNBA team, but now you've got Caitlin Clark, and they desperately need all of that expertise, all those hands on deck. So billboards were in place, jerseys were in the souvenir shop, huge, the gift shop, souvenir shop. I've been there several times at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Always stocked with Caitlin Clark stuff. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they run out every now and then. Extraordinary amount of souvenirs and t-shirts and jerseys you can buy. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, but especially Caitlin Clark. And they were totally prepared and ready. And all the social media that you see from the Indiana Fever, well, that's the Pacers Fever team. And they have over 20 people. I've got in the book, I forget the number exactly, 20, 23, 26 people doing digital. So just pumping out all those stories, all those videos, all that content on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, wherever else they put it, X, Twitter. That's what's going on. So when you have that relationship, as the Fever has, absolutely, it's golden, because now you have got the Major League men's team and the Major League women's team, and they're working in sync, and it's totally benefiting, obviously the Pacers, and then of course the Fever, and the leadership is one and the same. They're all in, and I do deal with all this in the book, and just how remarkable it is. And Indianapolis, just the perfect city for Caitlin Clark. Not too big, but not too small. Civic pride is extraordinary. I've probably spent about maybe a half a year of my life, 6 months, I don't even longer, in Indianapolis, covering everything from the Pan American Games to the World Gymnastics Championships to men's and women's Final Fours, Olympic swimming trials last year, Olympic trials in swimming back in '84 and '92 and 2000, and track and field trials in '88. I mean, on and on. So Indianapolis is the perfect place to respect women's sports and basketball, of course. So you throw all that in the mix and it makes perfect sense. So that's how it's run. It's some places, others are more independent and don't have an NBA ownership component to it. But again, it certainly is working very, very well in Indiana, because you've got the Pacers and that wherewithal, that knowledge, the funding, the Simon family that want to spend their money just on the Fever as much as they do. I mean, not as much as they do on the Pacers. Obviously, salaries are much different, but in terms of the importance of the Fever to the company, I could see it crystal clear, that they care very, very much about the Fever, as they of course do about the Pacers.
Yeah, the Pistons here in Detroit are behind the expansion team. They'll be like, it sounds like how things are set up in Indiana. It'd be the same thing here in Detroit when that comes together. You talk about in the book how Caitlin Clark's received such a harsh welcome from some players in the NBA. What, in your opinion, what do you think that was about?
Well, I deal with that a lot, as you know, in the book. And I talked to the great Dr. Harry Edwards, civil rights leader, a Black man, friend of mine. We've been on panels together. And the man behind the Black Power salute at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics. And Harry Edwards talked to me, and we talked for a while. And I wanted to ask him what he thought was happening. And he says, words of Harry Edwards in my book, he says the WNBA failed the players. And what he means by that is, of course, it's a 74% Black league. It's also, there's a sizable, and we don't have the exact numbers, but a sizable gay population as well. A sizable percentage of the women, of the players, the athletes on the WNBA teams are gay. And here you have a white woman Caitlin Clark, and also a straight white woman entering the league. And Harry Edwards and Brianna Scurry, the great goalkeeper from the '99 women's soccer team and other great teams as well for the U.S., and the first Black superstar of U.S. women's soccer. That, she says the same thing. We'll so focus more on race, that, you needed, not because these women are damsels in distress. No, they're not. They're well-educated, college-educated, Title IX products. The country has created tough, strong women athletes, just like tough, strong male athletes. But this would be new and different. To have a white superstar in this 74% Black league, and how on earth that they were not prepared. Harry Edwards says, have Zoom, like we're having a Zoom right now, Zoom call, have Zooms with players, individual one-on-one. He'd be happy, would have been happy to talk to players, have team meetings to discuss it, to get these things out in the open, to discuss, maybe the jealousy, the concerns, whatever, we can understand. It's a workplace, and someone new comes in, and you've been there a long time, and why is that person getting all the attention? Well, we know why Caitlin Clark's getting all the attention, but to talk it out. But without any great leadership in the WNBA, I hate to say it because I like Kathy Engelbert, but without that leadership, then that doesn't happen. And so then you don't have, as Harry Edwards says, you do not have those conversations, and you don't prepare the players. Again, not because they're needy, but because this was going to be the most extraordinary set of circumstances that WNBA has ever seen. I mentioned earlier, all these incredible athletes and players, most of them Black, people like Candace Parker, Cheryl Swoops, obviously Maya Moore, the great Maya Moore, who was Caitlin Clark's favorite player, 4 titles, the WNBA titles with the Minnesota Lynx. But Maya Moore, never got that attention that Caitlin Clark gets, not even close. And we wish she had, but she didn't. And Caitlin Clark would have wanted her to be that. She hugged her when she was a little kid, and ran across the court and just hugged her before a game, and kind of broke away from her dad and went, Caitlin Clark did, and went and hugged Maya Moore. It's a great story. I have it in the book. It's just wonderful. It's the magic of sports. When sports are good, they're great. All of that. But because of this, and now it's Caitlin Clark, how do you not prepare for that? How are you not talking about that, bringing that up? So instead, it all just hits like a ton of bricks. And now you get all the attendance and all the TV ratings and all the viewership and all the attention, and it's Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark. You would hope, like with Tiger Woods, took a few weeks, and most of the players were, kind of grumbling about Tiger, like he thinks he's going to win, and then Tiger was basically winning right away. And then within about 8-9 months, he won the Masters, and it's like, okay, a rising tide lifts all boats. Now, men's golf did not have social media back then. So we can only imagine the attacks on Tiger Woods, racially and otherwise, from the lily white world of golf, if there had been social media, but there wasn't back in the 90s when this was going on, mid to late 90s, and then into this century. And so they didn't have that. But the golfers, like, okay, he's going to beat us. That's okay. Well, I'll make more money. That's not happening in the WNBA. And that's a reality. So whether we like it or not, that's why, as you have Sheila Johnson, the Mystics owner, who was very upset and told CNN, a colleague of mine at CNN, Amanda Davies, that she was mad that Caitlin Clark was the Athlete of the Year on Time Magazine's cover. Why can't it be the entire league as League of the Year? I mean, who on earth says that? I love Sheila Johnson. I've known her forever, but just crazy that's not happening. And yet, that's exactly, what was going on. And so you've got Sheila Johnson talking about the hurt feelings. I kind of can't believe that that's a topic for these tough, strong female athletes, just like tough, strong male athletes. But I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. I think we're seeing just that either whatever, just a little jealousy. Now, again, more and more players do they all respect Caitlin Clark, and a lot of them want to play for the Indiana Fever. They want to be on the receiving end of those passes and play, obviously, with one of the great players of all time. Not the greatest yet. We'll see over time when she gets healthy. But so that there's that. But also, the fact is that I think as these younger college players move up into the pros, they have great respect for Caitlin Clark. So if it's the older players who are a little bit jealous or whatever it might be, whatever the words, Muffet McGraw says jealousy, petty jealousy that she noticed. The great Notre Dame coach said that to me in the book. Whatever it is, let's hope it works. They, some of those players age out, and then they're definitely not, hopefully it's a different feeling about all these young players, because again, the rising tide lifts all boats, and you certainly hope that that would be the case.
Well, there's a chapter in the book about your run-in with Dejanay Carrington and what happened after. Have you yourself encountered any more resistance to your covering the WNBA like that?
Well, no, they failed miserably, thank goodness, on that. The idea of banning a journalist is, that is for asking a question and a follow-up. As I say, I say in the book, I go through the whole story. If anyone wants to read it, I won't waste everyone's time now, that chapter controversy, which I did like an epilogue at the end. I wanted to make sure it was away from all the Caitlin Clark magic and the sports and the wonderful anecdotes and stories about Caitlin Clark and her teammates, and those going through that, first incredible year with her covering that story, and everything about it. But yeah, I was asking questions that any athlete would want to have asked. You're in the news, you're being, there probably, there were millions of posts, millions of hits and against Dejanay Carrington after her fingers went into kind of swatting, trying to swat at the ball, and her fingers went into Caitlin Clark's eye. And people were accusing her of all kinds of things. So a couple of days later, first press availability, I can't believe the other journalists didn't ask, the beat writers, but you have to ask, what happened there? Did she mean to do it? If she did, or if not, can you explain it? You ask a direct question so the athlete can hit it out of the park. That athlete should be, if they were prepared, if the league had told the players what was coming, and that we understand that national scrutiny will be coming, and if there was any kind of preparation for these athletes from their general managers or agents or anyone, I don't know what the heck was going on, but they would have known a question like that would be coming. And you want that question because then you can clear the air. As I said, you can hit it out of the park. You can set the narrative. You can set everyone straight. So I asked that. I asked a follow-up. And these are questions I've asked male athletes hundreds of times, even much harder questions. 19-year-old Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods, I've asked all kinds of questions. Journalists, we're not PR people. We're there to do our jobs and get answers that athletes usually want to answer those questions so that they can also get the word out, and as they might want to. Was the players union, when wanting to ban me over those questions, were they saying, what, women can't handle those questions? Is that the message they want to send in 2024, 2025, that you got to ask women softer questions than men? That's a horrible message from the players union. They failed miserably. As I said, I was not banned. I had a credential, and I was at game one of the finals. And I was also credentialed for the WNBA All-Star game this year. So I've been busy working on the book. So I've not been going to, and then the book tour, of course, have not been going to that many games. But I would have a credential for every single one. So the Players Association, that was just a dreadful mistake on their part. They won't say it, which is a problem for their leadership. But yeah, that didn't work out very well for them. And thank goodness, because there's no one that should be cheering for banning journalists. And these players are tough and strong, and they can handle those questions. And Caitlin Clark, my goodness, I asked her anything and everything. Nothing was off limits. It's an unauthorized book, meaning that we were not working together. But that sounds ominous, but it's not. What it means is that it's no holds barred. It's a journalistic look. What I do, in this case, a book about Caitlin Clark. She'll write her own book. It will be fabulous. People will buy it, and it'll be a huge success. That's not this, but it's not ominous. It's what you want as a reader. And Caitlin Clark, of course, participated answering those questions that I asked, about 50 of them. And nothing was off limits. Nothing. She answered everything, including after she liked the Taylor Swift post, not only saying that that people should vote, but also that Taylor Swift was endorsing Kamala Harris for president. And then the next day, I asked Caitlin Clark why she liked it, and got a lot of attention among other celebrities for liking the Taylor Swift post. I asked about why what she thought of that post, and was she potentially going to be endorsing Kamala Harris for president of the United States. You have to ask that question of one of the most famous athletes in the country, and who's especially put herself out there by liking the post and getting a lot of attention for that 24 hours earlier. So, of course, I asked it. And of course, Caitlin Clark answered it. Never complained. The union never complained about that one. So very interesting how that happened. But needless to say, I think it was a great victory for journalism. I certainly feel that way. Should we go to some questions, Dan?
Yeah, well, one more question that I want to well, okay, we can start with questions. Do you think the CBA for WNBA is expiring in October? Do you think there'll be an agreement?
These things, I've covered a lot of them in the NFL and over the years, others. We watch it kind of go to the end, last minute, 11th hour, and then they agree, or it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there are lockouts or strikes. Certainly covered the NFL in 82 and 87 when there were in both cases there were strikes, or lockouts where the players were not playing, and the season was altered in both cases tremendously. I would, as a journalist, I'm going to cover it, whatever happens. So I'm not cheering one side or the other, of course, but watching it, I think when you hear people say, and I've heard occasional comments from players, not Caitlin Clark, but others, saying, well, gosh, maybe they'll be, well, they probably didn't say gosh, but, they're, we might have to have a walkout, we might strike or something. What on earth are they talking about? This is a league that, by all accounts, I was not able to put this in the book, Dan, because I wasn't able to find out for sure, but it all published accounts, and the sense is that the WNBA is losing money. This is the moment. Caitlin Clark, even as she's injured, but this is the moment. You've got more eyeballs than ever before last year. And even though certainly it's dwindled because Caitlin Clark's not around, other teams are still getting a lot of attention and actually have better viewership than they did last year, even though those numbers are nowhere near the Indiana Fever numbers. And so, what, you're now going to strike? I mean, it's so tenuous. The fan base is there, but it's just arrived. And the idea that you might just say, okay, that's it, we're gonna shut down, if the players do that, or even frankly, if there's some kind of a lockout and the owners do that, it's just absolutely devastating. When that happened in Major League Baseball, it took baseball several years. And the home run derby, obviously, it turned out steroid-infused home run derby with Barry Bonds and McGuire and Sosa. But it took several years and those incredible surge in home runs because of performance-enhancing drugs. But that was how they started to get fans back and interest back. The WNBA does not have the foundation yet to be able to withstand a lockout or a strike. So let's hope they get their act together. They should have higher salaries. They couldn't have lower salaries. Salaries are incredibly low. Caitlin Clark made $76,000 last year. The top pick in the NBA draft made $57 million. Yes, you heard that right. $57 million for the NBA top pick, and $76,000 for Caitlin Clark. Now, she makes millions with her endorsements, including, of course, Nike, and this huge grand opening for all of her, whatever will be, her big announcements of her new logo and the shoes and the T-shirts and all of that, for sure. And then both with Caitlin Clark and then the Stanley, the water tumblers, the water bottles, and Caitlin and State Farm and everything else. I mean, she's making millions and millions of dollars. But the idea being, the salaries are so different. Of course, they deserve to make more money. There are more people watching. The value of the TV deals going up 4 times now, $200 million over 11 years. That's a much bigger deal. That's going to be huge. I think, again, there's more money, the value of the franchises because of the success of the Valkyries. You've got more teams coming in, Toronto and Portland, and then you'll have Cleveland and Detroit and Philadelphia. More franchises, people want in, so they should give them more benefits for sure. And let's hope that cooler heads prevail and that they can get that done.
Question from the audience: did the U.S. women's soccer team fight for equal pay help lead to the Caitlin Clark effect?
I'm sorry. The question is, I'm
Yeah,
seeing
did the U.S. women's soccer team fight for equal pay help lead to the Caitlin Clark effect?
Well, certainly I've covered that women's soccer team, and it's been huge. And, to think that those great athletes were representing the country and doing friendlies and more, Olympics and World Cups, and then also, jumping into cars to go do depositions to fight for equal pay. And they got it. And the male soccer players, the U.S. men, Title IX males, actually were helpful in that, in terms of saying that they wanted to make sure the women had equal pay, because the money is so much greater for the men's World Cup than the women's World Cup. And the U.S. women, of course, are so much better than the men, but the men's World Cup has just so much more money in it, because worldwide, the misogyny and the sexism is extraordinary, putting women's soccer down, keeping it down in so many countries. Questions we should all ask: all those countries with great men's soccer teams, why don't they have great women's soccer teams? England has now come back after not letting women play soccer for 50 years. True story, unbelievable. Of course, you see other countries, but the U.S. has been one of the leaders, of course, with the Scandinavian countries, Germany, and China and Japan. And Australia has been obviously pretty good as well. And so now you're seeing in Canada and Mexico as well. So you're seeing more and more of that. But yes, there's no doubt that the fight by those great athletes, covered them since the 90s. Even, Mia Hamm, Julie Foudy, Brandi Chastain, Brianna Scurry, that group was fighting for equal pay. And the fight kept going and going and going, and finally success. So I don't know that it led to Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark's shooting baskets in Iowa and, practicing. And then, of course, those logo threes and the entertainment value is what's extraordinary about Caitlin Clark. It's not basketball, it's entertainment. And as I said earlier, it's the high wire act at the circus. And that is bringing people that's a different conversation. And of course, there's no equal pay between the NBA and the WNBA. But keep in mind, women's soccer, that's the federation. And the goal for U.S. soccer, like USA basketball, like U.S. figure skating, like USA swimming, like U.S. track and field, all of them, is to grow the game. It's to promote the sport. It's to win medals, certainly, but those are the national governing bodies. So U.S. soccer is a national governing body. It is not a league. It is not the NBA or the WNBA, which is much more governed by capitalism. Hence the difference. But that's why when you have a national team like the women's soccer team fighting for that, it certainly sent it was a great headline and sent reverberations throughout sports. But does it impact a professional league, which is guided by profits and just the bottom line, whereas federations, national governing bodies, are guided also by that? They obviously have to pay the bills, but also by that big principle of growing their game and encouraging those who haven't had opportunities. We see that throughout all of those sports that I mentioned, all of your Olympic sports. It's much more. It's capitalism, yes, but it's much more than that, because it is about growing the game and giving opportunities to others, which is where, again, that part of the conversation comes into play big time with the U.S. women's soccer team.
All right, let's take a look for online questions.
Why don't we go? Can we go with Meredith Geisler? Because I know, is that okay with you, Dan? I see a couple here from Meredith and her students. I want to give a big shout out to the George Washington University Sports Media and Communications. I think I got that right, Meredith, didn't I? If I didn't, let me know. Meredith Geisler, who's been instrumental in this book, with her great advice and thoughts on marketing and public relations. So thank you, Meredith. Hello to that class. And there's 50 people listening in on that one alone, Dan. And let's go to
there's one. How do you think the WNBA could market their stars better? That was one of the questions.
Right. Yeah. Well, certainly it's going to help again with college players that are so much, because the TV ratings for college are so much better than the TV ratings for the WNBA. So when you got 18.9 million watching Caitlin Clark in that final game, Iowa and South Carolina, 18.9 million, they're happy to get 1.5, 2 million for a top WNBA game. So those college stars come in with their own following. Juju Watkins, for example. Number one, she has to get healthy, and let's hope she gets healthy and is, back to as good as new. Well, she will bring a great following when she leaves Southern Cal and then comes into the WNBA. As I said, Paige Bueckers, that hasn't, I mean, it's happened, yes, on one level for sure, but it hasn't happened in terms of attendance in that small 7,000 seat arena that she has not yet sold out, unless they did the other day. I've looked constantly to make sure I'm right on that. So we'll stand corrected if it was 7,000, but it's been 5,000, 6,000, whatever. And that's fine. It's not the end of the world. But, so I think, you do have to have an exciting brand of basketball. And Caitlin Clark brings you that. I also think the refs need to be better. This is universal. I can hear the cheering, even though I can't see or hear any of you. The refereeing has just been atrocious. When you don't call things and then you call things, when you take, hours, not hours, I'm being facetious, but, 10 minutes or whatever, 7, 8 minutes to make a decision, then you make the wrong decision. You don't kick Marina Mabry out for being a, freight train steamrolling Caitlin Clark, who is your economic rocket ship. If Marina Mabry had injured Caitlin Clark on that hit, if anyone hasn't seen it, go obviously Google it, but it was horrible. But Marina Mabry, if she had injured Caitlin, that, as far as we know, that did not injure Caitlin Clark, and that was not one of her injuries this year. But if it had, who would have been hurt most of all? Marina Mabry, because Caitlin Clark is the one that is going to be driving the financial future of your league. I mean, you've got to have refs who do their job. You've got to make it a more fluid game. You've got to call stuff so that, yes, of course, you got big bodies down there. That's part of the game. It's huge. It's wonderful. Angel Reese, fabulous rebounding going in there. You've got great big players. You've got Asia, Wilson, who's all over the court, but just terrific inside. Leah Boston, has been obviously Caitlin's, tag team partner inside outside. When Caitlin's been playing, so of course it's not just going to be a tea party, but you've got to make this a game that's watchable. And so I think that's another way to do it. Get better refs, pay them, make sure they can do the job. And then these new cities, you see Golden State just loves the Valkyries. That is great. That portends great things for Portland, Toronto, and the others yet to come. We see it with Indiana. They just love the fever. And even with Caitlin out, the fans have still been going, mostly to get Caitlin's autograph or to take pictures of her on the bench. That's certainly, I shouldn't say mostly, but a lot of people have gone for that reason. I know because I'm related to some of them. But I also, but they're, they enjoy the game. So you make it, can't miss. You make it must-see TV. You make it something you got to take your kids to, and it's very kid-friendly. And the prices still are much less than an NBA game. So even though Caitlin Clark tickets can be extraordinary, in general, the price will be less. So you want to take the family, you want to take the grandkids, whatever, you want to go, a WNBA game where you might get Caitlin Clark's autograph. You're going to have a great atmosphere. That's appealing to a lot of people. All of this, I think, will build on it, and I think it will get better as the years go on, as long as Caitlin Clark's playing basketball. They need her to be the figurehead for all of it. So thanks for that question.
Hey, let's see if we can get another question from the class. Let's see.
How about, do you see the Jung T Chow? Am I saying that correctly? I hope I am. When did you start planning and writing this book? Was this book on a condensed timeline compared to your other books? Yes. Yes, it was. And thanks for the question. And Meredith may have, I don't know if Meredith tipped you off on that a little bit, but I'll just say this. For anyone out there, a lot of people think of writing books on any topic, right? I would say don't do what I did. What happened was, I had written a few columns on Caitlin Clark, and I was and talking about her on CNN and ABC News, and I was covering her a little bit. Finally met her here in Washington, well, actually asked her questions, didn't meet her. Met her in Indiana when I was covering the U.S. Olympic swimming trials. It happened to be in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Arena. My sports editor, as other sports editors said, get over there, go leave swimming, go and write a column or two on Caitlin Clark. There were a couple of home games. The Fever happened to be in Indiana when all the swimming was going on in Indiana, picking the Olympic team for Paris. So, okay, I'm there, and I did meet Caitlin Clark. We spent 5 minutes together. Even then, no book, not thinking about it. Came home to DC here and gearing up to go to the Paris Olympics. I'm so lucky to do this, and I'm so honored, and just I feel so fortunate to have these opportunities. I never, it's just, you know, kind of it's a dream come true in every way. I never take it for granted. And I was thinking, you know, a book on Caitlin Clark. It kind of crossed my mind, and I was talked to an editor at Scribner who I knew, but not particularly well. I hadn't written a book in 19 years, Dan. I was really happy not writing books. You know, you can have your, you know, you're not tied in, you know. An old boyfriend said, when you're writing a book, it's like you're under self-imposed house arrest. And, you know, that is definitely true. And then when you're doing book tour, it's more like you're running for office, like political office. And my personality is more book tour than book writing. Anyway, one thing leads to another. And without a book proposal, without a plan, without anything at all, this basically never happens, rarely. Yeah, I know. I had a wonderful offer from Scribner, from my editor, Rick Horgan, to write this book and to write a book. And I then went off to the Paris Olympics. I did have a sleepless, you know, tossing and turning, like, what did I just say yes to? Came back from the Olympics, went right to Indianapolis, and then, you know, was on the road wherever the Fever were the rest of the season, including the playoffs. Then came home and basically organized it in a month or two, and then wrote it in 4 months. A quick book, a quick writing job is a year. And I did it in 4 months. And, you know, it's kind of like surreal to me that I did that. You know, I almost can't believe it. I'm reaching here for the book. You know, I sometimes I look at this and I kind of go like, wait, is this real? You know, did this really happen? It helps that I've been doing this for 40 years. I had, you know, if there were moments, and we all have doubts, right? And we all wonder, you know, and there's concerns, and, you know, is this going to be any good? And oh my gosh, I got to double check everything and pull an all-nighter doing that. And, you know, all the things that I was dealing with. But because I'm older, because I'm experienced, because I've written other books, it's been a while, but I have, and had success with other books, I was able to rely on that. And even if I wasn't thinking I was relying on it, I was. And I had a good internal compass, and I knew what I wanted to say. And the story was so intriguing to me. Caitlin Clark and what was going on, and watching women's sports and never believing I'd see the day where literally, you know, people are lined up in January and February for like a half a mile outside of the University of Maryland's arena, and Ohio State and Indiana's and my alma mater, Northwestern, and, you know, around the, you know, Big Ten in the cold. They're standing there like it's a Springsteen concert or Taylor Swift or Beyonce, but they're in line to watch a woman play basketball. And so I never thought I'd ever see that in my career, in my life, and not trying to be dramatic. It's just, so I think it was fun to write, because it was just something I've covered and cared about for so long, the rise of women in sports and the coverage of women in sports, even though I had no idea. You know, a girl born in Iowa in 2002 would somehow be the subject of a book of mine of 2024, 2025, and no idea, and no relationship at all with her until we shook hands when I was in Indiana, and we said hi and talked for 5 minutes. And even then, you know, I know her, but we did not work together, as I said, and that's good. You want a journalistic look. So, you know, it was Caitlin Clark, but it's the whole building the foundation of women's sports. So I was ready. It turns out I do speeches on that. So when you ask that question, it's a great question, Jung T. Chow, again, I hope I've got it right, pronounced it correctly. Jung T, I guess I should say, on second reference, that, you know, turns out I was totally ready to do it, even if I didn't know I was totally ready to do it.
Okay, do you want to go with one more question?
Well, actually, I'm happy to try to, here. I mean, I see a few here. The one from Amy, we'll go back to Meredith's class in a minute, but would you consider writing about year 2? Well, first of all, I hope everyone is buying the hardcover of the book. And I know on Amazon, we want you to, of course, bookstores and libraries, Dearborn Library. Again, thank you so much. My beloved Detroit and not too far from my hometown of Toledo and Ottawa Hills. But there will be a paperback, and the paperback will be out. We're going to have it out in May. So I hope you're still, snapping up the hardcover, which, by the way, is, I think, 40% off right now on Amazon. And I'll say this now, I'm happy to do book plates, which are the stickers that you can put, I can personalize. And I did not mean to show this to you guys, but that's what a book plate is. If you want them for gifts, for holidays, whatever, just email me at christinebrennan.com, and I am happy to personalize and write out as many book plates as possible for those books that you might still be buying. So that's the hardcover. But the paperback, as I said, will be out in May. We're going to get it out before. Scribner and I have a plan. I'm so thrilled, with all new forward and afterward, and all this entire season 2, and including the news and all of the everything that's happened. And I'll be writing about this season and all the various things that happened in the WNBA in season 2, and with Caitlin Clark, the injuries, everything, for the forward and the afterward of On Her Game in the paperback edition, which will be out, as I said, in May. So that's when I'll do that. So to answer your question, Amy, thank you for the question, and I will definitely be doing that. If there's another book down the road, potentially, I've got other ideas as well. I think that's for sure. We'll see how that plays out. This will be the freshest and most newsworthy paperback ever, because it will hit right before Caitlin Clark's 3rd season begins. And I promise you that I will have as much information and reporting and hopefully some breaking news in that as well. So that will be the plan. And so thank you for that question. And then we'll see what goes on beyond that. So, and thanks for letting me talk about the book plates and the opportunity. I do mean it, christinebrennan.com. I've got a lot more I've got to do for a lot of folks, but especially, if you've bought the book or but we haven't had a chance to meet, I will sign a book plate for you and I'll mail it to you. Postage is on me. Happy to do that for all of you. I'm so honored that so many people have bought the book and took us right to almost the top, number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. So I cannot thank you guys enough for that, and want to return that favor with those book plates if I can do that for you. So just get in touch with me, or if we can figure out how to send a book back and forth as well, if you'd like. So happy to do that. Can we do one more from Meredith?
One more.
Yeah. Let's see here. I've got, actually, I'd love to, let me just hit Toledo real quick. Angela from Toledo is asking about the growth of women's sports will fade or will continue to grow with women's sports bars popping up and equalize the tennis open. Yeah, I think it's going to keep growing. It will not be equal pay like tennis. Billie Jean King fought for that in 1973. Tennis is also in the same location, men's and women's. So you've got inequality there that you don't have in golf, and you don't have NBA, WNBA in terms of playing, like one and then plays the next, so you'd have that audience there. But it's going to be better all the time. I'm very, very bullish and very optimistic about the future. The glass half full for better pay for the women in all sports. Absolutely. Women's hockey, my goodness, obviously women's soccer continues to be getting great crowds. We're seeing it, women's softball leagues popping up all over. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. Someone asked about my professional career, Mary Jo, that was there a long time ago. Thank you. I think I kind of answered it. But you can also Wikipedia me if you want, but I've been doing this a long time, but I love sports and was always encouraged to love or play sports by my mom and dad at a time when most girls were told no. I was told yes, and I'm almost 6 feet tall, so I was good in sports. The boys wanted to play sports with me, and my parents and my dad and threw the baseball with me. So all of that love of sports, I always had a welcome. I was always welcomed in sports through my parents. Our dad season tickets, Michigan football, University of Toledo football, and I always felt I had a place in sports thanks to my parents and coaches and teachers and so many people who encouraged me, and then to follow my dreams into writing as well. And then let's see, I know we're missing a few. You know what? For any people who haven't, I won't answer your question. Let's do one more of Meredith's class if we can, Dan. But feel free to shoot me a message either through social media or on my website, christinebrennan.com, and I'll be happy to answer and maybe even send a video with an answer if it's something that if it's, depending on how that works out. So,
Well, yeah, I wish we could get all the questions answered.
yeah, how about
But we
Madison?
one more because we close at the top of the hour.
Oh, okay, that's right. So well, don't we have 20 more minutes, Dan? Just giving you the business here. I know people want to move on, but
we gotta lock up.
Okay. That's a good point. You got to go, right? Madison Lermer, what factors do you think contributed to the WNBA and to players' initial struggle to handle the scale of attention brought on by Caitlin Clark? Looking ahead, do you think there a path to not only manage this publicity, but also leverage it to increase the WNBA's visibility and foster long-term growth? And I did answer, probably before you guys came on, but certainly, and I deal with in the book, the jealousy and the concerns, the lack of preparation. If Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, who I like a lot, but if she had been a better leader and anticipated this, saw those long lines I was talking about, the TV ratings, again, 4 million more people watching the women's final than the men's final the next night, and anticipate this and say, we've got this coming. Let's talk to our players. Let's have Zoom calls. Let's have meetings with Dr. Harry Edwards. I quote him in the book, talked about this earlier again for those, sorry to repeat it, but I think it's helpful that, and just be smart about it, prepare for it and be ready. And they didn't do that. And again, not because these players are damsels in distress, as I said earlier. No, they're strong, tough women, but nothing like this ever happened before. 74% Black league, a white woman from Iowa. Obviously, that's not her fault. And she's fantastic. And the spotlight that's shining on her is shining on all these players. A'ja Wilson is getting more attention than she ever has. I know it bothers some people, but my point in the book, I deal with this, and that's kind of my last part of the answer to this for you there, Madison, is that, A'ja Wilson had less than 100,000 All-Star votes in 2023. Now, All-Star game voting can be a little quirky. You can vote a lot, right? You can, get other people to vote from other phones or whatever. Okay, but nonetheless, it's what the system they have. So I think she had 70 or 80,000. I've got it in the book. A'ja Wilson, the great star, MVP of the league, and she's got less than 100,000 All-Star votes. That's 2023. 2024, Caitlin Clark comes around. Caitlin, of course, is getting the most votes. And A'ja Wilson is now well into the hundreds of thousands. I think it was around 300,000 or so. I had this committed to memory. It's not anymore, but, it's close. She moves up. In other words, now more Caitlin Clark's fans are voting. All these people that have come in, a lot of these guys that are wearing the 22 jerseys that wouldn't have given the time of day to women's basketball 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now these guys are their sons. They care. They're bringing their daughters and they're voting. And A'ja Wilson's getting more votes. Caitlin got the most. This year, A'ja Wilson's close to 1 million votes. Caitlin Clark was well over 1 million, 1.2 million, I think. Caitlin Clark still got the most votes, but A'ja Wilson has gone from under 100,000 to close to 1 million in 2 years, because the rising tide lifts all boats. And for those out there who hate Caitlin Clark, and there are people out there, I've run into some of them on the book tour. I mean, 99% love her, but there is some young women and older women who just don't like her. It's astounding to me. I may write about it, may deal with it for the paperback, but just very strange for me to see this kind of, dislike, jealousy, whatever it might be. Again, Sheila Johnson called it the hurt feelings. And Muffet McGraw, these are all in the book. Muffet, the great Notre Dame coach, of course, talked about seeing what, might be called petty jealousy. Well, stop and look at what's happening. That spotlight that's shining on Caitlin Clark is shining on all of these players as never before. They're making more money. These Indiana Fever players are doing events because people care in Indiana so much. Caitlin can't do every event. Who's opening the grocery store? It's, Aaliyah Boston or Kelsey Mitchell or, Sophie Cunningham or Lexi Hall, or going to the school and doing the event there and probably getting some kind of fee or honorarium. I'm guessing, I don't know, I've got to believe they are. I mean, this is all a positive, and how it has been turned into a negative by some people is extraordinary. And yes, social media can be tough. I get it all the time. If you're a big league, you're going to get it on social media. Women get it worse than men, and Black women get it worse than white women, guaranteed. That's terrible. And thankfully, like Christy Sides in the Indiana Fever last year, she got them all off social media. Caitlin Clark was getting, all the Caitlin haters were going after her and her family. And all of so many others were going after whether the Black or the white players for the Fever for various reasons. Get off social media. Again, the lack of preparation, the lack of the WNBA seeing this happening and saying, let's get our players off social media for a while, or focus on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and get off of X, Twitter. All these things didn't happen, but let's hope that the WNBA will figure this out. And moving ahead to year 3 with Caitlin Clark, year 3 of the Caitlin Clark era, let's hope that they definitely get it figured out, because it's obviously a great thing for the country. It's a great thing for fans. And it's especially great for kids to have a role model like Caitlin Clark to look up to.
Well, thank you very much, Christine. There's lots more to talk about, but as I said, the lights are really shutting off soon here.
Sorry about that. Please tell the custodial staff or whatever, or if that's you, Dan. But thank you so much. Thanks for the support, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to answer all the questions, but please feel free to find me and send them to me. I'm easy to find. And thanks again for the support of On Her Game. I am so honored and I'm so grateful, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.